The Mike National of the Seas been made by Fink and Terry in Italy. This shipyard will manufacture the Mike National of the Seas cruise ship. When it's completed in 2027, will sail to the port of Newcastle and pick up passengers from overseas and take them to the port of Newcastle in Australia. The Mike National of the Seas will be ready in 2027. We'll pick up passengers from other countries and bring them to Newcastle. The Mike National of the Seas is set to sail in 2027. Sail from Newcastle to Japan, or Newcastle to South Africa on Mike National of the Seas, or sail to Brisbane or Melbourne Cruise Terminal, Brisbane or Melbourne, or sail from cruise ship from Brisbane to Melbourne, or sail to the Australian Islands on Mike National of the Seas. The Mike National of the Seas is set sail to the Australian Islands. The Australian Islands deal with Mike National of the Seas. Travel from Mike National of the Seas to South Africa by Mike National of the Seas. Or travel to Italy and the Italy Islands with Mike National of the Seas. Travel to Sicily Islands with Mike National of the Seas. The Mike National of the Seas is set sail to Brisbane, Melbourne, Mike National sail to Sicily on board Mike National of the Seas. Mike National of the Seas is set sail to the oceans of Italy and set sail to Newcastle. From there, the ship will set sail to Adelaide and Brisbane to see the Bank Barrier Reef on Mike National of the Seas. The cruise ship will set sail to Africa, South Africa, and return with Mike National of the Seas. I travel to Japan with Mike National of the Seas. Travel to America with Mike National of the Seas. Or travel to the New Zealand Islands with Mike National of the Seas. Mike National of the Seas is set sail to the Australian Islands, or set sail to Italy Islands and around American Islands. Set sail on Mike National of the Seas. The Mike National of the Seas set sail to America, Japan, South Africa, Ireland. The Mike National of the Seas set sail South America, Ireland, New Zealand Islands, American Islands, Italy Islands. The Mike National of the Seas is set sail to your ports of Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide and Perth and all the Australian Islands. Set sail on Mike National of the Seas to Japan, South Africa, Newcastle, and other places on board the Mike National of the Seas. Sail from Africa to Japan, Newcastle, Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide. Sail on Mike National of the Seas from Africa to Italy Islands on Mike National of the Seas. The Mike National of the Seas is sail the Royal Caravan Islands on Mike National of the Seas, or sail from the Australian Islands for 5 nights or 6 nights on board Mike National of the Seas, or 4 nights on board Mike National of the Seas. The first port of visit ahead is Italy. Mike National of the Seas is docked in Italy. Then the ship will set sail in Italy, stopping at all the ports of Italy. Starting with Italy ports. The Mike National of the Seas will set sail and be ready in 2027. Italy ports, Italy Islands. Set sail to Italy Islands. First port of visit is start sailing from Italy to America, or Italy to America and Japan on board Mike National of the Seas. Travel on Mike National of the Seas Islands, Italy. The first port we're going to visit is Italy. Mike National of the Seas to set sail to the port of Italy. Mike National of the Seas sail to Baltimore, Italy, America, New Zealand, and Swain Island. Sail in Swain Island on board Mike National of the Seas. Or sail with to Japan by Italy by Mike National of the Seas. Sail to Italy, Australia, and New Zealand on Mike National of the Seas. Sail from Japan to South Africa on Mike National of the Seas. Sail to New Zealand and Brisbane and Melbourne on Mike National of the Seas. Mike National of the Seas will be ready in 2027, but we're sailing to Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, Melbourne, Sydney and Mike National of the Seas. Sail to Brisbane or to Sydney on Mike National of the Seas, or sail to Italy on Mike National of the Seas. Sail to South America on Mike National of the Seas, or sail to the Swain Islands and Pino Islands on Mike National of the Seas. Sail to Brisbane on Mike National of the Seas. Sail to Japan, Brisbane, Melbourne and Adelaide on Mike National of the Seas. Please sail on Mike National of the Seas cruise ship. Other countries are opposite. Mike National of the Seas will set sail to Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide, Italy, United States, Africa, or other countries on Mike National of the Seas. Travel to France on Mike National of the Seas. One more last port to visit on Mike National of the Seas. Mike National of the Seas will be the first cruise ship to dock in Newcastle Port. The dock is 50 meters than Mike National of the Seas cruise ship is. Mike National of the Seas will be the first cruise ship to dock in the harbour of Newcastle. Mike National of the Seas to sail from Japan and Newcastle. The Mike National of the Seas to sail to Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide and Perth. set sail on Mike National of the Seas for 5 nights on board Mike National of the Seas. For 5 nights on board Mike National of the Seas to travel to Melbourne and Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, or set sail to the Australian Islands on board Mike National of the Seas. We got the Mike National of the Seas will set sail to Italy and America, South Africa, Ireland, France. Travel to France or Italy, sail to Italy. Sail to Italy on board Mike National of the Seas. Or travel to South America by Mike National of the Seas. Or set sail from Italy to Australian Islands on board Mike National of the Seas. Or set sail from Mike National of the Seas to Mike National of the Seas Islands on board Mike National of the Seas. Mike National of the Seas will set sail to Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide. We are set sail to Brisbane to see the Great Barrier Reef on board Mike National of the Seas. Mike National of the Seas to set sail to Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth. We set sail to Adelaide to see crocodiles, feed crocodiles on board Mike National of the Seas. Mike National of the Seas to set sail to Brisbane, Melbourne and Adelaide. Set sail to Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, Brisbane and Australia. Set sail all the Australian Islands first on Mike National of the Seas. Mike National of the Seas is the first cruise ship to dock in Newcastle. The Mike National of the Seas, one port to visit. Mike National of the Seas will be the first cruise ship to dock in Newcastle Harbour. Mike National of the Seas will be the cruise ship set sail to Newcastle.